Here, take this." An elderly man, who appeared to be homeless and dressed in tattered clothes, was slumped over, seemingly having succumbed to the cold. That was my impression of him. I hesitated for a moment, but then approached him and spoke. "Are you okay?" The old man weakly nodded and grasped my hand. Seeing his tattered clothes, I felt compelled to do something. Without thinking, I handed him my jacket and a $100 bill. "Please, wear this, and use the money to buy something hot." The old man looked at me with surprise and confusion, but I accepted the jacket and the bill. He quietly thanked me. "Thank you." Little did I know that this encounter would drastically change my life. My name is Isaiah King, and I work at a nearby paper factory. Although the economy seems to be recovering, my salary hasn't increased at all. I had no idea what was going on, but there was no use complaining, so I hoped for a raise while I took a shortcut through the park to the factory gates. As I changed into my work clothes, "Good morning." "Good morning," I greeted cheerfully my colleagues. This has been my morning routine since I started working at the paper mill. Our company recycles a large amount of waste paper. We handle various types and shapes of paper collected from households and businesses. Since the waste paper is recycled into new paper, my job is environmentally friendly and sustainable. I'm in charge of sorting the waste paper. Each piece has to be visually inspected and categorized, requiring experience and keen observation. With practiced hands, I separate the paper into categories like newspapers, cartons, and magazines. My coworkers are also diligently working, just like me. Before I knew it, it was lunchtime. The factory workers all left the workspace at once, heading toward the cafeteria, lining up in a queue. Inside, the cafeteria buzzed with lively chatter. The joyful conversations and laughter of the workers echoed throughout. I took my usual seat and enjoyed lunch with my friends. Breakfast sets, daily specials, hamburger steaks, and lasagna were all on the menu. Luckily, the most expensive item was only about $4, so it's easy on the wallet. Today, I chose lasagna, which came with a salad. I returned to the table with my friends. Everyone had delicious-looking dishes in front of them. During lunch, we chatted about work, family, and the latest sports news. Smiles and laughter were constant, quickly washing away the morning's fatigue. Looking around, I noticed that many people were eating lasagna. When someone ate lasagna, those around him were inclined to follow suit. It was pretty typical and made me giggle. Eating lunch together always made the food taste better. I stuffed my mouth with lasagna, feeling a wave of happiness wash over me. It was moments like this that made all the hard work worth it. Lunchtime flew by in an instant. For the workers, this enjoyable lunch break is the most cherished time of the day. After recharging with lunch, we got back to work in the afternoon. I moved to the recycling line, where sorted waste paper is ground into a powder, dissolved in water, and made into new paper. I was in charge of adjusting the settings to ensure the paper came out in the right thickness and size. As the work progressed, I started to feel the fatigue setting in, but with pride in my work, I never compromised on quality. With precise movements, I operated the machinery, producing a lot of recycled paper throughout the day. In the evening, I washed my hands and left the factory when my shift ended. By then, the night shift workers had started to arrive. The factory never stopped operating. I headed home, thinking about the mountains of waste paper I still saw around. The anticipation of these papers being recycled into something valuable excited me. My day ended, and tomorrow would bring another routine day. I took pride in my work. I was satisfied with my job. Even though the economy was improving, my salary wasn't. It was frustrating. Savings were slow to grow. I lived each day with a mix of satisfaction and worry about the future. I was grateful that I didn't have to work overtime. But regarding the future, I was concerned about my own well-being after retirement. I lost my parents in an accident when I was a child and was raised by my grandparents. They were loving, strong, and my biggest support. My grandpa passed away 5 years ago. Since then, my grandma lived alone, so I moved back home to live with her. She was like a mother to me. One day, my grandma fell and broke her bone. I got the news while I was at work. I thought my heart would stop. I left work early and rushed to the hospital where she was taken. I couldn't calm down until I saw her. When I got to the hospital, I hurried to her room. But because of the current infection control measures, I couldn't see her. All I wanted was to see my grandma. I couldn't do anything. Feeling helpless, I managed to talk to the nurse. As soon as we arrived at the hospital, my grandmother underwent a lint gauge and CT scan and was diagnosed with a femur fracture. She said my grandma had been given an anesthetic and a metal rod. It was painful just to imagine it. She was scheduled for surgery in about a week. The problem was that I didn't get to see her at all. We'll keep a watch on her for the most part, but she should be wheelchair-bound a day after surgery, so you should be able to visit her a week from now. How is she doing now? She's relatively stable now. I hope you can meet her soon. We'll take good care of her until she's discharged, so don't worry. The nurse's words left me no choice but to head home. Usually, my grandma would greet me with a smile and a warm dinner. But that night, the house felt incredibly empty. The vastness of the space only amplified my loneliness. I noticed my grandma's smartphone left on the kitchen table. Without it, I couldn't reach her. The next day after work, I rushed to the hospital, bringing her smartphone and some clothes. Since I couldn't see her, please contact me on my smartphone when possible. I left a note. I just wanted to hear her voice. That night, I finally got a call from her. She seemed all right. I was relieved to hear her voice, which seemed good. She explained she had tripped over a small step and fell hard. She hadn't realized her bone was fractured. With her age, her bones were becoming fragile, despite her efforts to take calcium. It was a harsh reminder of the reality of aging. Well, it was usual for every senior person. She ended the call quickly, not wanting to disturb other patients. From that day on, she called me every day, even if just for a short time. She always ended the call with, "I wish I could go home soon. Hospitals aren't exactly restful, you know." True. I'll be waiting for you. I hope you can come back here soon. I'm going to visit you soon. Our chats usually ended like that. Her operation was completed successfully 1 week after she was taken to the hospital. Little did I know how tough things would get from here. I was shocked that her rehab started the day after surgery. Every day was filled with rehab sessions. One day, she was transferred to a rehab specialist hospital, starting a long rehab journey. Since the new hospital was near my work, I visited her every day after my shift. She also seems to be concerned about the cost of hospitalization. It's true that financially things have gotten a bit tough, so I thought about what else I could do besides my job. I did a lot of research, but there wasn't much I could do while still working my current job. After much thought, I decided to start delivering newspapers. Delivering newspapers obviously starts early in the morning. I delivered papers to the houses in my neighborhood. At first, it was physically tough, and sometimes I got lost. So initially, I only delivered on weekends. During my deliveries, I encountered various events and deepened my interactions with the townspeople. My delivery skills gradually improved, and I could deliver the newspapers accurately even while being pressed for time. Then I changed my contract to a daily delivery route, delivering newspapers every morning before going to work. I felt I'd become quite familiar with my town. I had enough confidence to answer any question about it. The townspeople often expressed their gratitude and gave me words of encouragement. Several months passed, and I was able to gradually cover the costs of my grandmother's hospitalization. It seemed her hospital stay would continue for a while. Every morning, I delivered newspapers before heading to work. After work, I visited my grandmother in the hospital daily. She always looked forward to my visits after work. "Have you lost some weight, Isaiah? Are you eating well?" She was rather worried about me. Although I got used to working as a newspaper delivery man, it's still hard depending on the weather and the season. especially on winter mornings. I can't even describe it in words. One cold winter day, I was working as usual delivering newspapers. Then, I saw an old man in tattered clothes, who looked like a homeless man, sitting there slumped down. It seemed to me that he had run out of strength from the cold. That was my impression of him. I hesitated for a moment, but then approached him and spoke. "Are you okay?" The old man weakly nodded and grasped my hand. Seeing his tattered clothes, I felt compelled to do something. Without thinking, I handed him my jacket and a $100 bill. "Wear this and use the money to buy something hot." I looked into my wallet as I said so, but I simply happened to have a $100 bill. It was very important money for me. If I give it to him, my life will be very difficult. This was the money I was going to use to pay for lunch, my daily pleasure. But I had a feeling he was going to be in trouble if I didn't do something about it. He was dressed like that on such a cold day. I made up my mind. I had no other options. "Here, take this. First, let's go somewhere warm and buy something hot." I handed the old man a $100 bill. The old man looked at me with a surprised expression, a little confused, but took the jacket and the $100 bill. Then he quietly thanked me. "Thank you." But he looked like he had a hard time standing up. "Are you all right? Let's get you to the nearby convenience store." I offered him my shoulder for support, and we slowly made our way to the store. Luckily, it was a Saturday. After distributing newspapers, I would take a shortcut through this park to get home. If it were a weekday, I wouldn't have been walking through this park. I was relieved that it was Saturday. The old man walked with a weak gait, almost not speaking. It was not that he didn't talk, it was more like he couldn't talk at all. We walked slowly and finally entered a convenience store. It was warm inside. I had been moving around delivering newspapers, so even without my jacket, I was still warm. In fact, I was almost too hot. With the little money left in my wallet, I bought 2 cups of hot coffee and handed one to the old man. This store had an eat-in space, which was a relief. We sat there in silence, sipping our coffee. I could see some color returning to his face. I felt relieved to see him like that. Thank God. Watching him, I couldn't help but think of my late grandfather. He was kind and loving. I wondered how he was doing up in heaven. I wished he could have stayed with us longer. Looking at the old man, I felt a strong desire for him to stay healthy. I wanted him to cherish his life. That was my heartfelt thought. Then, the old man opened his mouth. "Thank you so much. Thank you for what you've done for me. I can't thank you enough for your kindness. Oh, don't mention it. It was really cold outside. I was worried about your health. It's not much, but I think you can manage for the time being. Please eat something first." I saw that the old man had regained some of his energy, and we parted ways for the rest of the day. I did this even though my life was tough too. Thinking about this, I arrived home. From the money I had withdrawn from the bank yesterday, I had already lost $100 from my living expenses for the month. I would have to cut back this month. For a moment, I thought that, but then immediately thought that the old man's life was more important. I was short on money yet happy. I found myself laughing. I had given away my only jacket, so I had nothing to wear from tomorrow. After eating at home, I looked in my closet for something to replace my jacket. Old clothes I used to wear were neatly stored there. There were many things I thought, I can't wear this anymore. Even the clothes I wore as a student were still there. I had to find something I could wear to work. After searching for a while, I found my late grandpa's jacket. It was perfect. Remembering my grandpa fondly, I decided to wear this jacket from the next day. I immediately wore my grandfather's jacket and headed to my grandmother's hospital. Even when I visited, I couldn't enter her room because of infection prevention, so we always met in the meeting room. Recently, my grandma had started moving with crutches. She was eager to walk properly again, but she always complained that rehab time had decreased since moving to this rehab hospital. I need a little more time for daily rehabilitation. I don't think I'll be able to go home any sooner because my recovery won't be as fast as it should be. I keep asking the doctor, but nothing changes. I am wondering if there is anything they can do about it. I understand how you feel, but the specialists are deciding your rehab based on your condition. We have to trust them. I'll ask the nurse about it too. Let's trust the doctors and keep going. We had this conversation every time. Oh, by the way, I thought your grandpa had come to visit today. What's with that jacket? I'm sure I surprised you, didn't I? Well, actually, I told her about what happened that morning. Grandma was moved to tears and happy. You did a good thing. You've always been such a kind boy, Isaiah. So, you gave away your jacket. I see, I see. I hope that person gets better and rebuilds his life. We talked about such things. I truly hope the same. The next day, my usual routine began again. The only difference was that I was wearing my grandpa's jacket. I felt like he was protecting me. A few months passed. Busy with daily life, I had completely forgotten about that old man. As usual, I finished my newspaper delivery and was heading home through the shortcut in the park. Then one day, I saw the old man again. What surprised me was how different he looked. He was well dressed and neat. Wait, is that really the same guy? I did a double take. The old man noticed me and walked over, looking pleased. Finally, I've found you. Thank you so much for your help the other day. I'm truly grateful for what you did. Oh, it was nothing. We all help each other in tough times. I'm just glad to see you're doing well. Thank you. I've been thinking of how to repay your kindness. Please come to my home sometime. A home? You have a home? That's amazing. I couldn't help but shout in joy. I had thought he was completely homeless, so I assumed something must have changed in the past few months. Did that $100 help him somehow? I had doubted it for a moment, but now I was glad I gave it to him. Happiness welled up inside me. When are you available? How about tomorrow, Sunday? Oh, sure, that works. Thank you for inviting me, but that won't be necessary. Even as I said that, I was curious to see this man's home. I wanted to hear his story and how he had progressed. I was sure he would tell me an interesting story. While I was thinking, he handed me a letter. I hesitated but decided to accept his invitation. So, I headed to the address in the letter. When I arrived, I was stunned. I double-checked the address, because in front of me was a grand mansion surrounded by high walls, with beautiful gardens all around. I never imagined it would be a place like this. Am I dreaming or something? That's how I felt. The door opened, and as I was let in by a servant, I was breathless with surprise at every turn. The interior was spacious, filled with luxurious furnishings. There were large paintings by famous artists and valuable antiques. Under a grand chandelier, there was an impressive table. I took a seat as directed by the servant. Welcome. Thank you for coming today. Now, let's eat. The old man took a seat as well. On the table were an array of sumptuous dishes. A full-course meal with wine. It started with elegant appetizers like scallops and caviar, followed by deliciously cooked fish and meat dishes, and pasta with fragrant truffles. I'd never had such a feast. Almost all these dishes were new to me. I'd never experienced such luxury. Finally, dessert was served. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm really grateful for meeting you that day. Even without any reason, I felt like I would surely meet you again. No, I really wanted to meet you again. So, I made sure to walk in that park around the same time. But, in reality, quite some time had passed. Oh, I only pass through that park on weekends. On other days, I do my newspaper route and then head straight to work. I see. That's why it was hard to find you. It's rare for young people these days to do a newspaper route before going to work. Well, my grandma is in the hospital with a broken bone. It's been a long ordeal, so I started the route to help pay for her hospital bills. That stuff. So, how is your grandma doing? The surgery went well, and the fracture's okay, but the rehab is tough. She's in a rehab hospital now. She should be able to leave in about a month. I see, I see. I hope she gets out soon. But there's something I've been dying to ask you. What happened from the day we met in that park to now? I'm truly amazed. The old man smiled and answered. Well, that's obvious. I'm really sorry for not telling you sooner. Actually, I run a factory nearby. Wait, why were you there that day? Well, the day before, my entire family gathered to discuss the future of our company. I'm getting older, you know. Since our company is family-run and I don't have children, there were many disputes over succession. I've always thought that for the future of the company, It's time to stop family management. I've always believed that we need a leader who truly understands the feelings of our employees and can show genuine compassion. But as long as I stay in my current position, it's hard to see people's true nature. I was looking for someone who could treat everyone with kindness and compassion, regardless of their status. I was desperately thinking about how I could meet such a person. I see. So, I thought, what if I pretended to be homeless? If someone treated me kindly even then, that person could treat anyone with compassion. Someone with true compassion. Okay. I couldn't keep up with what he was saying. So, I decided to put it into practice in that park. But everyone just passed by without a second glance. Everyone was so cold. I was starting to freeze, really feeling my hands and feet getting numb. When you spoke to me, Tommy, you looked like an angel. You took off your own jacket and gave it to me. And even though you hesitated, you gave me that $100 bill. I'll never forget that. Well, that was. I just did what anyone would do. No, it really meant a lot to me. I wanted to thank you sooner and tell you the truth like this. I've always wanted to return the jacket and money you lent me as soon as possible. I feel really bad for what I did. I have to apologize for testing you. I'm really sorry. You might not forgive me, but, well, I was stunned, unable to comprehend. It was unbelievable. So, it was all a lie. I was speechless, not knowing what to think. To create such a situation on purpose, that was not normal. But, he was freezing, and it was only natural to help him. Well, in the end, he was all right. Well, I'm glad to see you're doing well. But really, I was so shocked. I'm really sorry. I was too naive. It was really thoughtless of me. Really, I'm sorry. If you don't mind, I'd like you to visit me occasionally. Sure. I want you to be my friend. Talking to you really calms me down. Despite feeling a bit angry, for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to get mad. I agreed to meet him again and went home. Later, I understood I had been tricked and felt a little depressed. It's always been this way. I've often been led around by friends, not realizing obvious lies. I was like the poster boy for being a pushover. Thinking back to my school days and such, it made me laugh. It's fine. This is just who I am. With that in mind, I headed to the hospital to see my grandma. But something seemed off with her. Had she overdone it with her solo walking practice due to the lack of rehab time? She seemed to be in pain in the leg she had surgery on. I understand how you feel, but you overdid it, didn't you? You shouldn't act on your own. It might delay your discharge. I spoke to my grandma a bit harshly. She was supposed to be discharged by the end of the month. I wondered if she'd be okay. I felt sorry for her because she wanted to come home badly. I made her promise me not to overdo it and left. Then my usual days began again. One day, I was suddenly called by my immediate supervisor. I wondered why as I headed to his office. Hey Isaiah, how are you? I have a job I'd like you to take on. It's developing a new product. Will you do it? I was very surprised when I heard the details. It involved using special techniques to develop new products and optimizing the production line for them. If I succeeded in this task, there was a possibility of promotion. I never thought such a chance would come. But can I really do it? I felt a bit anxious. I consulted my supervisor and worked hard. I researched to further improve my skills and worked late into the night. Meanwhile, my colleagues, knowing about this, grew increasingly dissatisfied. They wondered what I was given this task. Eventually, out of jealousy, my colleagues began to harass me. They deliberately messed up the workspace and caused defects. Their goal was to ruin my work. I didn't want to lose to such things. I tried to ignore the harassment and focus on my work. But the harassment from my colleagues escalated. I wasn't sure what I should do. This was the first time I experienced such a thing. Those colleagues I got along so well with. I felt really sad. Working late nights and delivering newspapers early in the morning. Repeating this every day was taking its toll on me, both mentally and physically. The only break I had was being regularly invited to the old man's house. By now, they felt like family, and he even celebrated with me when my grandma was discharged. The old man's wife was very kind too. It felt like I had more grandparents, and I was happy. One day, I was invited again, as usual. How's work recently? We talked about work as usual. I told him everything, including my recent troubles. That's not good. Have you talked to your supervisor about it? Is there no way to fix it? We discussed these things over our usual dinner. I told him honestly that I felt sad about how my once close colleagues had changed, and that sometimes I wanted to give up on the task I was assigned. But someone has to do it. Since you were chosen, I think you should see it through to the end. Then and there, he encouraged me. So, I vowed not to give up and to focus on my work, no matter what. Meanwhile, my supervisor noticed the harassment on the factory cameras and decided to address it. He warned the colleagues harassing me and told them that if they took responsibility and worked diligently, they too would get such opportunities. Additionally, it was decided to reveal the results of my task to all employees to prove my ability. With my supervisor's support, I succeeded in developing the new product and optimizing its production line. My colleagues were very surprised, and their resentment towards me gradually disappeared. They began to recognize and respect my abilities. I couldn't believe I had such potential. It was just unbelievable. I thanked my boss. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And thank you for all the support. Come on, Isaiah. You always did your work faithfully and were always sincere and hardworking. That always stood out. You deserved it. And soon, my achievements were recognized and I got promoted. One day, I was called to the CEO's office. I panicked, thinking I had done something wrong. I wondered what was going on. I knocked the door. Excuse me. It was my first time in the CEO's office. I walked in, heart pounding. And there, I saw a familiar face. Wait, what? Congratulations on your success. And thank you so much. I'm sorry to say this out of the blue, but I realized I can't keep going much longer. So, I want to start teaching you my job. Wait, what do you mean? I've observed your true nature and character and made my decision. Remember the story I told you? Well, about that. I want you to be the next CEO in the future. What do you say? Will you accept? Gasps arose from the executives gathered in the office. Wait, were you the CEO of our company? I was shocked and felt embarrassed that I hadn't realized it until now. It was always like that. It was always been this way for me. I stood there, stunned. I couldn't believe it. It's an incredible honor, but I don't think I'm up to such a job. I still have a lot to learn and experience. And I'm not in a position to take on such a role. No, I see you as a son, or maybe even a grandson. That's why I need your help. I want you to support and lead this company with me. You'd be a leader who truly understands the employees' feelings. Well, I never imagined it would come to this. Well, it's not like it has to be right away. I want you to learn by my side and support me. Over time, you'll naturally develop the skills needed. I want to transform this company into one with even higher employee satisfaction. For the company's future, I need your help. I was speechless. Please let me think about it. I'll give you a proper answer soon. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity. Then I went back to my current job. Since then, I've been thinking a lot. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but the responsibility was huge. I'd never felt particularly blessed, but I'd been relatively happy. Or rather, I'd tried to live believing I was happy. Losing my parents early was unfortunate, but as a result, I got to live with my grandparents. I love my grandparents. They cherished me like their own child. I thought of them as my parents. Honestly, I was very shocked by my grandma's fracture. Working and delivering newspapers to cover medical expenses has been tough lately. But thanks to that, I got to meet the CEO of my company. If my grandma hadn't broken her leg, I might never have met him. It felt like I'd been guided to this point by something. Meeting the CEO felt like one of those prank shows on TV. And thinking about it now, it was kind of funny. The big reveal came much later. I was really shocked at the time. When I told my grandma, she was just as surprised. So, was that old man the CEO? I'm still angry he tricked you like that, but I'm proud of you, Isaiah. You did the right thing, and it was just like you. But since he picked you for your character, you should accept it. It's a big responsibility, and it's scary, but give it your best shot. You're my wonderful grandson, and I know you'd do fine. Encouraged by my grandma's words, I decided to accept the CEO's offer. From there, things moved quickly. I was appointed as the CEO's assistant, learning the ropes of the job directly from him every day. The tasks were different, but my attitude towards work remained the same. My coworkers who had harassed me never imagined I'd end up here, and they seemed to regret their actions from back then. My previous supervisor was also shocked, saying he wished he had treated me better. But I want to tell everyone that it's okay and that I haven't changed. When I eventually take over as CEO, I'll strive to be a fair and compassionate leader, always grateful for this fateful encounter. I truly wish for everyone's happiness.